BEEX project is a no-profit foundation about visual art and photography. If you want to help us, just drop a donation on buymeacoffee.com/BerlinExplorer. So welcome to this appointment of 50-minute web experience. Today I'm with Boris Eldagsen from Berlin. Welcome, Boris.
Hello, nice being here.
Yeah, it's really nice for me too, and especially to meet someone else is in Berlin. For me, it's really much more nicer because that can be a possible connection to meet us in the real person. But today we start to connect each other, and I would love to know first of all who are you, and if you can introduce a bit yourself to the people are listening this podcast, then everyone know better something about you, and then we can just go on with the specific question also.
I'm an artist working with photography. I also do installation and video art.
Okay, really short. So let's go a bit more in your details. So how do you consider that visual communicate exactly what you want? So do you think your visual communicate exactly what you want to say with them?
I didn't get the question. Can you rephrase?
So my question is, do you think your visual communication is talking really clearly, or hide some messages behind?
Well, I consider to be moving in the art world, and if you create an artwork, it is communicating, but there's a difference between using photography as an artist and using photography as for visual communication. Yeah, that has for me a history that is more rooted in design. So the work I do ideally speaks to you on several levels. There has to be an emotional feeling, a gut feeling. And if you go deeper into the work, you can also see links to topics, art history, different approaches. And the best way to approach an artwork, in my recommendation, is not to ask, what does the artist want to tell us? Because that would be also like communication.
Yeah, sure.
But the communication is basically happening within you, and the artwork is just triggering it. So the question I propose to ask yourself is, what does the artwork do with me? Why do I feel in a certain way? Why do I have certain thoughts coming up? So it's an interior journey, learning about yourself that can be triggered by the artwork. It's a different approach.
Yeah, totally. It's a different approach. What I mean in my question, if you really feel that your art is able to talk for you directly as you can talk in a grammar way. That's what I was asking to you, and that's because that's because your artwork is really particular, we can say, and unique, and use different level of communication. And we are not talking about general photography we can see in the mainstream channel, but it's something is based on a different level of communication. That's why I asked you that question.
Yes, like the mainstream of photography is socially, politically engaged in topics of today. My work is more philosophical or psychological, where it's not talking about the problems this world has, but about the human condition that is the basis for what we are having in our societies. And that human basis is timeless. It's not changing that quickly. And from my experience, and I have been showing in different countries in the world, in Asia, in Europe, in Australia, in America, with different religious systems, it reaches people. There, I get feedback from around the globe, so it doesn't seem to be attached to a certain culture or religion. If you like my work or not, it's more a personal thing.
Yeah, for sure. A kind of poetry totally different from something is related to a kind of topic. It's much more rated from emotional level of feeling, and I think this is something we can find also in other picture that are more in mainstream. But yeah, it's practically straight to the point that that way you communicate is there and is constantly. And what remind me some of this work, some books I've seen several years ago of some artists. One of them, it's one picture. Remember me a work of Antoine Dagata, and I can feel it's a bit on the way of this expression. So this kind of mix of between expressionism and impressionism, and this touching the feeling of the soul, than more than touching the note of the society. So that's for sure your work fitted in every kind of society, but it's really interesting. I asked to myself in which way touched every different country. If this feeling there was only human feeling, so naturally and general, or in a way or another, we are influenced from our society and the different level, different layers of subculture influences. And for some countries, some areas in the world, some colors come out in a way, and from others come out in another way. So then they touch different, how to say, notes inside of our mind.
I know, but I think the work is in itself existential, and we all share the same psychological makeup. So, like, the work can be linked to the idea of Carl Gustav Jung that we all share a kind of consciousness that let us perceive the world in certain archetypes. So if I, as an artist, can tap into those archetypes, the work has an effect around across the cultures and is also timeless. You can also make a link to existential philosophy, where we all share the same problems, that we are influenced by desires, by hopes, by fears, that we are all mortal, and what this has an effect on our lives. So this is more the world I'm moving in than looking at a particular political problem of today.
What do you think? Why do you think you are right to communicate that and to creating that with your heart?
It was always an interest of mine. Like, I studied 6 years of philosophy. It has an impact. I was always interested in what we have in common across the cultures and also across the time. So I'm looking for things that are similarities, connections, and that interest was always there, and it was just growing, and becoming more conscious.
Okay, so because I have to say, it's watching at your work. it's not really easy to read that common feeling. I mean, yeah, you can react just easily to what you have in front of you, but I think your images need to be read and read and read and read and read and overread until you don't get the exactly feeling. It's a bit difficult for me in the, I have to say, to read your picture in a way. I mean, to also react in a way to your picture, and I can just say, yeah, I appreciate really the color. I appreciate the composition, but if I have to read the picture and if I have to really say that the picture touched me in a particular way, I probably need more than 1 month to just stay in front of your picture.
Well, the work has always been polarizing. There are some people where you don't need to explain a word. And then there are some people that you can't reach even if you sit down and explain it for hours, because often we see things that we are open for, that we are already carrying in us. This is one aspect of the work. And then the contemporary photography scene is always asking for stories. And my previous solo works, I do solo and collaborative work, my solo works had been called poems, to show that it's not a story, that it differs from the usual images that try to carry narratives. A poem is much more open. It needs to be completed by the viewer, the audience. And not everybody likes poems.
Yeah, for sure. Not everyone likes poems. I mean, this is really actual what you said. I write poetry for several years, and I was really touched to discover the synonyms. Even and then I really went totally deep in some meaning and some words that then I discovered not everyone knows that there was existing these words. But yeah, in a way they touched me in a really particular part of myself, and in a way, yeah, they guided me to see more, or probably also to see less other things. But yeah, this is the feeling I have watching your work. It's kind of in a way like you've discovered a level of communication with yourself, also a level of experimentation that is not really easy to get in touch with. I mean, everyone can do it a comment, every part of the audience can do it a comment, and this is absolutely part of the freedom to get in touch with the heart. But I ask to myself that you feel, do you feel that your heart is on the level with the audience that you would be, that your heart be?
Yeah, but who is the audience? Like, audience is never 100%.
I mean, your audience in this case, not the audience we don't know yet.
I think, yes, I did a big room installation in Aal, parallel to the photography festival this summer. It was a very immersive experience. And I had very fascinating meetings with people that just came there randomly. There was one guy who was attracted by the poster. And then he was asking, what is it? And I told him it's for an exhibition downstairs. And so he went in the basement and he stayed like half an hour. And then he came out of the basement and he said, I see myself in every second picture. And then I asked him, who are you? What are you doing? And then he said he was a forensic policeman from Marseille. And that was a very fascinating experience. Another experience was a woman with a little child, like 4 or 5 years old. They also stayed like half an hour in there and had fun just playing around because it was so colorful. And she was a Moroccan nurse working in the south of France, and she didn't have any educated background. So I'm surprised who gets it and enjoys it. And I'm also often surprised who I can't reach. It's nothing I can predict.
Yeah, this is so wonderful and nice what you shared now, and I liked that. And also in a way, it's something you never expect to listen from someone that, especially when you understand that people don't come from an artistic education, and it's really, I think it's really part of the satisfaction to doing visual art in general. And what I can say, watching your picture is what I feel so strong in all the portfolio in general, all the work you did. It's there is a strong communication about. In a way, it touched me in that way. I don't know if it's that. I don't want to say bullshit, but something related to the strong emotion we consider sometimes bad emotion of our life. I feel like there is something in the dark. I mean, it's clearly most of the picture they are in the dark, but when I say that, it's something related to the sex, the aggression, all the strong emotion. You know, the strong love, the strong way to cry, and I wanted to. I'm really curious. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful in a way, but I'm really curious to know if this is really related to your person.
What you say can be explained by the Jungian psychology. Jung speaks of the shadow. The shadow is like all the negative things that are part of us that we don't like, don't want to see. So we put them somewhere. And the work confronts you with this shadow. So that is doing like a very important task for you, because in the Jungian psychology, it's very important during life to make peace with yourself, to integrate all the different parts, also the parts you don't like to have. And if you take the idea of the shadow and go back in art history, you find it expressed in many different art forms, in many different theories. You have it in books like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You also have it in Fight Club. You have it in works that go back to Chinese philosophy. There's a story of a shadow. There is a man that doesn't like his shadow, so he's running and running and wants to run away from the shadow. And it doesn't work. So he runs faster and faster, and it doesn't work. And then he dies. And the end of the Chinese story is, if you sit in the shade of a tree and rest, you're not getting exhausted, and your shadow is also suddenly gone because it became part with the shadow of nature. You have a tradition in Japan, which is called wabi-sabi, where when porcelain is broken, it's not thrown away, it's glued together, so you see that it was broken, and the part that was broken is made very costly, often with gold, so that that injury is really exaggerated. And then you have like a quote from a Persian Sufi like Rumi, that the wound is the place where the light gets in. You have Canadian singer Leonard Cohen, who says there's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. and so on and so on and so on. They are all talking about a shadow. And what you have been describing before is exactly this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm watching now really all the picture from your Instagram. I went back to the 2014, and in a way, I'm watching this story as of gradually going more and more in the topic. And I wanted to ask you if you remember, and yeah, if you can describe the moment that you realized that you wanted to ride that particularly horses. So then riding your communication to the next level that you are now actually.
I think it's a gradual thing. One work is leading you to the next, and you do your private research. When I finished my philosophy studies, I didn't read philosophy for 5 years. And then I got back into psychology, into outskirts of psychology and philosophy. I was reading in occult books. I was researching what I have in common. And 15 years ago, I decided to only work at night. Somehow I often photographed at night. I did like it, but I was stuck daytime. And then I realized, no, the nighttime is my time. And like for the last week, I'm out every night. At 8 o'clock, I start my working shift and I work from 8 mostly till midnight. And when you want to find me, you go to Museums Island. I live like 10 minutes away. And I'm at Museums Island photographing most of the time I'm in Berlin. It's always surprising. It's always different. And I'm fascinated of what's happening there. So what I'm doing there is not street photography. I'm using the tools of street photography by not staging things. What I photograph is happening. But the photographs, they don't want to show you this is a tourist from Japan at Museums Island. The photograph wants to use this as material and to transform it into a timeless symbol for our existence and the human condition.
Yeah.
Last night I was there and half of the Museums Island was fenced off. It was a big Hollywood production, Keanu Reeves' John Wick 4. But it was also fascinating because the scenery, they changed. They had fog machines and gigantic drones, and the whole place did change. It's always different. I go there tonight again.
Nice. What I was thinking about what we was talking before to record this podcast was that more or less my 50 minutes of experience is never 50 minutes, and in this case, for example, will be not enough 50 minutes to write the conversation to the level as to be really in this intimacy to keep the conversation on the middle of the best, and this is the same. I think that the time we need to really start to reading some images or to getting in touch with some images or to getting in touch with some inner emotion, we need at least 50 minutes in front of them, and then probably we will start to see something. So I was thinking that, before we said, it's never 50 minutes, and I will never cut the conversation at 50 minutes. And I think that, probably it's 50 minutes, and then we can start to talk about experience. So, during you was talking, you let us me thinking about some inspirational stuff. And about the night in general, that years ago I was also I shoot for 5 years, all in the night. Then after my mother died, after the death of my mother, I couldn't anymore shooting in the night. And there was this totally transformation inside of myself, inside of the way I see the world. And I can recognize in a way that I was righted from some inner thinking and feeling about also to be not understood from the world or from myself. Probably I was not understanding myself, and that's why I asked to you if that extreme, we can say extreme, but really true feeling of human being. So as we consider negative, but I don't think at all they are negative, but they are just really powerful. If they are still part of your persona, or they are just something you are longing for to continue to keep your research about.
I'm not sure if I got your question right. Do you ask if I still have those existential experiences in my life?
Yeah.
I do, but I think everybody does. Sometimes there is nothing happening. It's like a normal life, like this, not very highs and lows. And sometimes it's very extreme. Like last year was very extreme for me. I had a friend who had brain cancer, and he had just a year left. And that was when the pandemic started. And after the first wave, he decided to die legally, to commit suicide legally in Switzerland. And he asked me to organize it. And that was tough, yeah. And I did all the paperwork. I was writing the letters for him. I said, I can't do it alone. We need like a team. So we had 3 people. I was doing the organization, one was doing the finances, and another friend accompanied me and my friend to Switzerland. And we went there and we spent 3 days and we're sitting beside his bed when he was killing himself. It was a very powerful and tough experience, also beautiful experience because we could fulfill his wish. But there's nothing that prepares you for this. Like, how do you spend a last night? How do you spend a last breakfast together when you know that, like, the person who is sitting next to you and smoking a cigarette will be dead in 2 hours? And it's also very strong to watch it, to see how the body change in 2 minutes and suddenly a person is dead. I know these are experiences that not everybody is having or wants to have, but it is belonging to our existence. And the collaborator I'm working with for the project we have been talking about, the rabbit hole, Tanvir Taolat, he's based in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. And if you've ever been to Bangladesh out there, it's a different life than we are leading. It's harder, it's tougher. The suffering and pain you see on the street is visible much more than in Europe.
Yeah, totally. It's totally another world, especially if we go a bit out from the city of Bangladesh, that especially people live on the rail train. It's really something you will never imagine that exists in the life, in the world in general, but yeah, unfortunately exists. And there are also some other stuff really cruel. But yeah, in a way, I think also that what is cruel in some part of the world, and they touch in a way this straight point to be cruel. You know, they are direct to you cruel. There are many other stuff in we have in Europe. They are cruel in the feeling, in the way we perceive, and not in the way we see.
I totally agree. When I was 24, I was crazy enough to study a semester in India. I was never outside of Europe. I just went there. And India in the 90s is like Bangladesh today. I returned to India 2 years ago and it changed a lot. But what I realized being at an Indian art school is they had an interest to make pretty works because they saw all the suffering and pain out in the street. And it seemed that Europe was just the flip side. Yeah, you see like beauty, flowers, wealth on the street. But in the artworks, you often see the pain and the suffering, which is then more a psychological pain and suffering.
Yeah, there is a lot of psychological pain in the world, and that's what I was meaning before. And especially in Europe, we have rules or normalized bullshit that we actually consider normal, but they are not normal at all. And yeah, and especially we live in riding an old horses of 300-400 years ago still is here, you know, and that's what I was saying. So in the end, we have for sure our cruel part of the world, and in some countries it's more touchable in the visual way, and some other countries it's not touchable in the visual way, but inside is hidden and is reserved and is accumulated inside of every person in every house. And yeah, I think we are living in Berlin. We can see that. We can see how much the society is crazy and ill in some ways, and this also need to putting out the emotion with the alcohol, with the drugs, with the clubs is a continuously necessity of most of people live here, and you live from a lot of time here in Berlin, so then you know more than me about that for sure, and. I wanted to also know if this changing of this city, in a way or another, changed also yourself, and if actually Berlin is continue to fit in your persona.
It does. Yeah, I really feel at home here. Like I moved to Berlin in the late 90s. And that was a time when it was like still like rough and dirty and depressing. Yeah, there had been no beer bikes. There had been no renovated houses. You saw the bullet shots in the facades. But it was vibrating. It was wild. There was room for experimentation. And here at Rosenthaler Platz, where I live, if you go down the street and you have just like tourism and boutiques, fashion here. I can tell you where there had been the clubs before and the squatted houses, and when there was clubs you entered, they had only one toilet, which was unisex and had no door, and the ground floor was broken, and in the cellar was the dance floor. That was always an exciting part of Berlin. Of course, it has been pushed more to the outskirts. And money came in, people came in, but what I like here is it is a magnet for the people I would like to work with. Everybody comes here, and it's a magnet for the people that don't fit in somewhere else. Berlin has a long tradition of being tolerant. If you go back to the Prussian times, Prussia had been a very like a military style organized state, but you could believe in any religion, which was unique. Usually you had to follow the belief system of the king. In Prussia, the king said, I don't care. We have rules, you pay taxes, everything is fine. And if you go back to Friedrich der Große, he was gay. And his father executed his lover in front of his eyes. Yeah, that is a tough biography, but it also was leading, I think, to a tolerance that always had been existed in Berlin and continues to exist. And that is keeping me here. Everything else is changing, and that's normal. Places change. In the last 20 years, London did change, New York did change, Lisbon, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to stay here.
I'm completely agree with you. I mean, it was my curiosity, but in a way or another, yeah, I came here not in the 90 like you, but in the 7 years ago, and yeah, a lot of things changed in 7 years, especially in these last 3 years during also the pandemic. Also changed the city, but I feel I fit much more now than before. I mean,
Okay, how is that? How did the city change you?
changed a lot because in a way, I come from Naples, and in Naples also is a city a bit of freedom in a way. I mean, for the expression, for sure, the expression of the feeling is totally free, but it's a continuously way to survive there. I mean, you are really fighting to survive, and the most of the job is in black. There is almost no legal job, and I grew up in a village that is really close where they produce heroin. So I have seen probably every kind of situation about Camorra, mafia, and stuff like that. And in a way, yeah, I'm used to stay with good people and bad people. And when I came here in Berlin, was not really a decision. I mean, I came here, I bought a flight for a random place, it was Berlin, and I came here for 3 days with a friend. And after the 2 days, I said to my friend, I want to continue to stay here for another week. I like to walk here. I mean, this is when people ask me why you are in Berlin, because I like to walk. And yeah, it was the truth. I like just to walk here. I didn't know anything about Berlin. I didn't know any word about German. I was not able to speak English. And then, yeah, I decided, yeah, I want to come here because I like to walk. And before some years before, I was working on a project of myself, a long project. And this project was named Walking. And it was based on discovering myself through the reality was outside. And I just continued to walk, and I discovered a lot of not only of myself but a lot of different people of everywhere here in Berlin. And I think Berlin is then this is nice because when there was a moment that I told you my mother died, then I had to go back in Italy before she was going to die. And I started to read a lot. I read a lot of books, especially in sociology and anthropology and psychology. And I connected a lot with a lot of people that was living in Berlin in different part of the world life. So from every epoch, I read about Berlin, and I was fitting in every of this philosophy of every person that was expressing the same things I was thinking about Berlin. And then I recognized that in a way, is a city is constantly in changing, but never change. There's this kind of opposite experience that is always in changing but never change. Because if you read stuff about 600 years ago, and probably that Berlin was not really connected, but there was the same kind of people and same kind of culture that it's really based in the roots of this earth. And that's changed completely my vision to be much more wide than open, because what I understood some years ago that this also terminology to be open is not really a good thing, because thinking to be open means that also getting the shit, not only getting good stuff. It means to don't really choose what you want to get or not. So then I started to think about, I want to be wide than open. I want to see wide stuff and choose if something fit with me or not. And yeah, it's gave to me a lot of occasion to learn. I think this could be happen also in other place, much more power of culture, but for sure influenced me in a way to also go out from some influence that I had in the South Italy. So yeah, I think it's a city totally involved. Also, the understanding that we are always getting in touch with a lot of people come here, and then these people, probably 90% of them, they go away after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, or else. And yeah, it's really a mirror of I think the reality in some ways, and also it's a mirror of the emotion of the people, because as I said before, here there is also a lot of tolerance, as you said, and there is also a lot of ideas developed that you are free, but in a way we are still in Germany, and there are some stuff that you are not free. So
It is, but Berlin is like not identical with Germany, like New York is not identical with the United States. Yeah, it is also something in itself.
yeah, I mean, in the low part.
Yes. What I've also one theory about Berlin that I did like in the past was that it's like a big promise that, of course, can't be kept for all. But I was often asked, what's the difference between Berlin and Melbourne? I was like living 6 years between Australia and Germany, and the Australians asked me, what's so special about Berlin? And then I said, in Berlin, you could ride nude on your bike, yeah, naked without clothes, no helmet, and drink a beer, and it would be okay. And in Australia, you would be arrested for each of those three things.
Yeah. Also.
And many times I was saying this, and at some point I was reading an interview with some Australians being in Berlin, and they had been asked the same question. So what's the difference between Australia or Melbourne and Berlin? And they were quoting me. That was so funny, because my explanation became a kind of meme that was passed on as a tool to explain difference. And it has left me. And people used it without knowing that I was the source. That was funny.
That's really cool. So I ask you the last question, then I let you go. So one thing is I'm interesting about it's what do you think today we missed in the world of visual art?
I think that art is more than a political or sociological comment or activism. Yeah, that art is something that also has roots in the timeless human condition and are not reacting to the now every time. You see, there are certain fashionable trends that museums need to tick off. And I do support all those political causes, but I think it's wrong that what you are shown out there is concentrating on those topics. Yeah, like Paris Photo this year has a focus on female photographers, others do black photographers, to LGBTQ, to minorities, to post-colonial subjects. These are the trends that are shown, and they are connected to political, sociological ideas and movements. But I think art is more than politics. Art is something for people that are brave enough to look into a mirror and then ask themselves, why has this artwork such an effect on me? That they are curious enough to make a journey inside. Because everything else I can read in the newspapers. Newspapers are writing a lot about politics.
Yeah.
I want to see something else when I go into the museum or an
Yeah,
exhibition.
I completely agree with you about that. So thank you a lot, Boris, for this talk, and really was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. It was really nice. Thank you a lot.
My pleasure. And if you would like to photograph again at night and do a tour together, let me know. Then we can hang out one night at museums.
Wow, sure, I will do that. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Learn more about our project at allmylinks.com/BerlinExplorer or visit our Instagram and follow BerlinExplorer project.